Hello, everybody. Welcome to Everything in Moderation podcast, the international edition. This is episode 18, and Armenians rejoice. The United States has finally recognized the Armenian Genocide. Boys, what do we think?
Uh, it's definitely a thing they needed to do. It's kind of like everybody else did it. The Armenian Genocide. You could think of it as a mini World War, not World War, sorry, mini Holocaust, because it basically was. That's what most genocides are like, right? But this was definitely a big one, and it happened before and during World War One. So both World Wars had genocides in them, I guess you could say. But what it really was the ethnic cleansing of Christians in the region, and there's a lot of reasons why this happened, but it's mostly based in like far back history. If you know anything about that region and why Christians were persecuted that much in, or at least by the Turkish people, and that's because they were once the Ottoman Empire. And if you know anything about way back when in medieval history, the Crusades happened, and that was the fight between Muslims and Christians for holy sites. So there's a lot of history that goes into the reasoning behind like this ethnic cleansing. Um, but it all can be really summed down to what the individual state does. They've had these tensions for a long time, but they've never really done something like this, and there's definitely a reasoning behind it.
Yeah, definitely it was a very tragic event. I think close to like three quarters of the Armenian population at the time disappeared. Um, so, just seeing um, you can see why like Armenians kind of stick together, like going forward, because it is really important that they continue um, that line. And Armenia is like a country like no other, in the sense that like it's very very unique. Um, obviously there are other unique countries for sure, but um, like they have their own language that doesn't really sound like anything else. They are the first Christian nation in history, like that have nationally recognized religion. Um, and now it's even funnier is there are more Armenians like spread across the world than there are in Armenia. So it's
Yeah.
it's pretty
How
cool
things
how
work, yeah.
they went from I don't know the exact number, but I feel like it was less than a million that was left after the genocide.
Like a
And
million people died during it, I believe.
yeah.
Between 1915 and 17, I think
Mhm.
yeah.
And they were able to repopulate. So kudos kudos to them. They're still going strong. And I've gone to the genocide memorials in Times Square um, to my freshman year and my sophomore year. COVID happened in junior year, so they didn't have it. But um, yeah, it's always a really cool thing, and like especially I'm not Armenian, but they just welcome you with open arms and like they appreciate uh, you being there specifically. Um, and it's like funny how many times you get called like hey, like, are you Armenian? I'm like, no, I'm not. I was like,
No.
okay, why are you here? It's like a lot of my friends are here. Like I care about um this being recognized and like commemorating, remembering like my Christian brothers that were lost and stuff. So um that's always my answer.
I wonder why it's taken this long for the recognition. It's been over like a century. So,
You
um,
know,
I think the easiest answer is just relations with Turkey.
I believe, yeah,
yeah.
most likely. And also it's framing what you call it. I mean, other times you would have things declared as acts of genocide, especially in the way you try it legally. Like if you look at Rwanda and stuff like that, they don't always refer to it as the Rwanda genocide, but just certain acts of genocide.
It's strange though, isn't it? Because all Turkey basically has to say is just like kind of condemn what happened, whatever. Like the Germans did it, and you could even say that um, just looking at it from a moral point of view, that was the Ottoman Empire that did it. And for all intents and purposes, Turkey is this nation that birthed from the Ottoman Empire. But I mean, you could always say that. It's like, yeah, we condemn the actions of our forefathers.
I mean, and that's a good thing to do as well. I mean, a lot of countries, especially ones that, I mean, the U.S. even, we have some things that we've done, but at least we acknowledge it. You know, we're not like certain countries that do not, and it kind of holds it because they're too proud almost. And it's not just Turkey that does this either, but I'm happy that it was at least recognized sooner, better now better than never. So.
Just to say is this was inevitable. I mentioned this in the episode that is coming out on Wednesday. That it was going to be recognized in the United States because 49 states out of 50 recognized the genocide to happen. Fuck you, Mississippi.
Yeah, I was gonna ask who's the 50. It's so random.
I was looking for a reason why they didn't like formally recognize it, but I couldn't really find anything.
Maybe just forgot.
Got lost in the paperwork. I'm
telling you, they probably got lost in the paperwork. They just had it like along the line. The guy was like, dude, I can't do this. I got to go home. And then also like what was passed.
It also seems random. Like what does like a specific, I mean, if you just boil it down to just Mississippi, oh, Mississippi doesn't recognize it. Oh, I mean, I don't know. Mississippi, it's not the U.S. in total. So.
So what do you think that the international implications for recognizing this will be for the United States?
Well, for one, Turkey's not going to like them very much, but it's not really like it matters to us anymore. We're kind of withdrawing most of our resources that we get from Turkey, which before was oil, and mineral resources as well. But I feel like this is just America becoming more progressive. I would say that the reason why countries like have not recognized it at all is because this genocide was almost directly tied with religion. When you talk about the Holocaust, yes, it was the Jews, but at the time they were almost like an ethnic people. So it was more ethnic in anything than revolving religion. Like even if you talk about the speech they used for Jews, it wasn't really bashing their religion. It was more over bashing them as an ethnic people. And that's the difference between those kinds of genocides. Like back then in World War I, they were still talking about religion. And, that was a huge thing because even though the Crusades were 700 years before, that hate is still there. And it resulted in countless conflicts between that time and then. And I would say that's the difference. And people, I would say politicians at least, don't really want to like dive into that field because it risks like their religion populace or the people that will vote for them that are religious, seeing this and then reacting to it, which they don't really want to. I as a like maybe you could make the argument that Catholics all over the country would rejoice, but then they would have to tell Catholics, hey man, Turkey just fucking killed a whole ton of them, and then what is the base of America gonna think? Fuck Turkey. Maybe that could start some feelings with Turkey that could result in some conflicts. So I think America strategically stayed out of it, or at least that was their thinking. But it really doesn't make sense when a whole ton of other countries are at least recognizing it.
Yeah, and it can't even be claimed as a bold move because, I mean, they kind of waited. I feel like that's, in a way, characteristic of the U.S. I mean, in terms of just like giving it a second, but then when they make the move and they announce something, then it's big and then they look like the heroes. But, I'll add to this. You brought up the difference between the ethnic portion or ethnic, the reason behind genocide in terms of ethnicity or religion. And then there's also national, or like the nation.
Identity, like nationalism.
Identity. But I want to bring it back just even further to one of the first noted examples, which is kind of the opposite. Instead of Christians being removed, it's kind of the Jews and the Moors being removed in Spain. I'm of Spanish descent, and I did some and what's shown there is back in 711, Tariq of the Moors raided Spain, and then there became a huge mingling of Jews, Christians, Moors, Islam, and although there were certain wars and fights, it ended up being a combination that helped the economy and education because of a combination of religions. But then what happened was the Inquisition came in of the church, and they decided to first start taking away the Jews, right? Eliminating them and persecuting. But then what was interesting is that they started doing the same thing to the Moriscos. And who are the Moriscos? They're ethnically Moorish. They're originally followers of Islam, but converted to Christianity. And that is one of the first examples of, oh, it's similar to the Holocaust of, oh, it's not just your religion. Now it's the whole ethnicity. We're gonna remove you as well. I don't care if you come with us or not. So that's another example there. And I think when we look at genocide, regardless of what it is, race, ethnicity, nationality, it's all about power. And I don't think it really helps any country in the end. I think it cripples the country as a whole and just gives power to those who started. Yes.
The thing with that is like, just strategically speaking, if you commit genocide, you're basically going to have a whole bunch of enemies on your back that you didn't have prior to actually carrying that out.
I would say that depends on the situation. Like, for
Yeah.
example, you could say the California genocide, which is a genocide of the indigenous people, that came with no consequences
Mhm.
just because they were gone already,
Yeah.
But, that point is definitely something that we need to look at when in terms of like other countries or like in the global scale.
Correct. Yeah. Once you do it on an international scale, that's when it, allies would be like, what the hell did you do? But yeah, going back to what Patrick and Danny said about like the Germans and their genocide, um, the Holocaust was more of like an ethnic kind of thing because gypsies were included in that, Polish people. So it wasn't just the Jews that lost their lives to the Holocaust. Specifically, they were the majority, I would say. But then when we have here in the Armenian genocide, it was more of a religious based genocide, especially because I think Syrians were also persecuted against as well. The Ottoman Empire was a pretty vast um, frame of land back in those days, but going into World War One, they had like the nickname like the sick man of Europe, like it was a failing state. So them getting into the war was just the last straw. And it would be cool to like go back into history a little bit one day for like an episode and kind of discover why we have like this oil wars, that because you could trace it back to that, to the Arabian tribes revolting against the Ottoman Empire too, when the UK came to Saudi Arabia. So
Right.
that'd be pretty cool. Um, So, in terms of like actual repercussions from Turkey to the United States, what do you think would be the most likely to happen? Do you think anything's going to happen? Are they just going to be like, "Hey, fuck you guys"? Are they just going to like place sanctions? Maybe, who knows?
I think it's all going to be rhetoric. I mean, what can Turkey do to the United
Mm.
States? Like, even if they sanction us, they will be losing more money than they are, on anything else. We are an economic powerhouse in the global scale. You don't just sanction us. I mean, we sanction Russia, and Russia's
Yeah.
a huge, huge country, and there's a reason why we do it. It's because we're losing money, but fucking look at who else is giving us money. The rest of the world, that's America's global economy that we enjoy, right? But Turkey, they really can't do any repercussions. However, it will hurt our diplomatic ability with them. Because when we want something from them, I guarantee you they're not going to be ready to jump on the bandwagon and say yes. And that is specifically why I said that this is related to us not needing them for resources anymore, because we did previously. They had a good amount of mineral wealth and they had oil. So, we get that from other places now. I mean, we just had 20 years of war that basically was a, privateer business in that, in Iraq and Afghanistan. So I wouldn't say it would be any real you know, pushed back right now, but it will have diplomatic implications, you know, soon.
I could
Possibly,
definitely
but
see
I
that.
also think that, I think it's going to come to a point where Turkey has to kind of change their thought process, change their route. I mean, I don't think the United. This is just one step for the United States to say something that they could have said years ago. But I think it's just another pushback for Turkey in the long run. The shortcoming, maybe not. Maybe they'll come to the United States with a little more aggression, say, screw you, for saying something that's true. But you know,
I really would like. I don't know if Turkey will ever recognize the genocide, and pretty much that's what Armenians are fighting for the most is just having them apologize for it so that they can move forward. But it's strange because before you came on, Patrick, I just talked to Danny before, and it was like, if you ask a German now, it's like, oh, did the Holocaust happen? I would probably say, in most cases, 10 out of 10 of them would say, yeah, that happened, right? But if you go to Turkey and you say, did the Armenian genocide happen? And they'll be like, what? Like either that or it's like 9 out of 10 of them are going to say, no, it did not.
Christian, I really want to explain the reason why that is.
Sure.
And I'm going to, say this right off the bat. You know, genocides are a direct causation from nationalism. And you can see it here in the example that you just met. Because Germany has changed a lot
Yeah.
since World War II. They are a very progressive nation compared to what it was before, and they're not nationalist. Not very. There is sects of German, in Germany that are like that. Trust me, but it is not the majority of the population. But when you look at Turkey, they're still nationalists. And that pride has continued. And if you look at any genocide, the reason why it happens is because the leader at the time wants to use some ethnic group, and this could be related to religion as well, as a common enemy. As we discussed, in the five filters of mass media, what the common enemy is, that's also a rhetoric tool. So these politicians or leaders at the time would use this group to basically blame all the problems and say, hey, us, we are a nation of Turkey, or, in the Armenian genocide, it would say, hey, we are Muslims, right? Our values are Muslim, okay? And these people, they're ruining our country. They're horrible Christians, and they are just destroying us from the inside out. So what do? We're gonna get rid of them, I guarantee you, even you look in Cambodia, it's the same thing. Even if you look at tribal genocides, like I brought up the example of the California genocide, which is our genocide against the indigenous people. That was during the time of manifest destiny, where we said to ourselves, God damn it, we're Americans and we're just freaking taking over. Okay, this is our land, and it's nationalism that will lead into this kind of stuff, because nationalism, it comes hand in hand with racism, and then this, it starts there, and then it's a dangerous level. That's why nationalism is a good thing in moderation, everything in moderation, right? But too much of it, you lead into horrible things like genocides.
I will
So
add to that because that is a great point. It's not regular nationalism. Any sort of it's not wrong to enjoy your country, the good parts of it. But hyper nationalism, and fascism, all these things are connected. And if you look at any genocide or any attempt, to rid a smaller group of people, I will make this claim that ironically, it doesn't have as much to do with the actual religious or ethnic group. It's just a matter of them being what can be called a soft spot. You look at uh, in China during the end of Mao with the Cultural Revolution against Buddhist temples. They brought those down, not because, oh, I hate Buddhists. It's just, no, it's a weak spot, and we could rid them and bring ourselves up. China bring themselves up rather, and they're doing the same thing with the Han ethnicity, not because they technically hate something because they're specifically that ethnicity, like the Uyghurs, but because it's a soft spot. So they're going to get rid of them, claim the Hans, and say this is our nationality. It happens in every single thing you see. It could also happen in Yugoslavia. It occurred as well because those nations weren't supposed to be together anyway, and it was actually fighting against certain ethnicities so that they could gain more national power. As
That's
left
good
to
that you brought
do,
up Yugoslavia
yeah.
too, because that is a modern day example. That happened just recently, actually, like 20 years ago, was the Bosnian genocide from Serbs, and it literally almost word for word, was the Armenian genocide just brought to the future. So I find that interesting.
It's,
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
interesting because Yugoslavia, like Patrick said, they weren't like meant to be together.
Yep.
A lot of what happened is you had a Bosnian Muslim in one door, you had an Orthodox Christian Serb in the next door, and then you had a Catholic Croatian, all all in one area.
and it was forced.
Now, exactly. Now listen, people can coexist, but when you do it like that, it's just going to cause some resentment, and especially when you just like people hate their neighbors in just general. Imagine being like, it's like, oh, this person's different than me, so now I have more of a reason to hate this group because this one person is a piece of shit, you know?
Yeah.
So they make these generalizations are bold claims that this is the reason why our country is failing. Like maybe like one ethnicity is lazy, like they don't go to work, they sit at home and play music all day, you know? They say like, oh, this is the soft spot in our country, we need to like get rid of them.
Or maybe
So
they literally are doing just fine and they'll just say that because they can and they have the majority. I mean, look at or maybe like a small ethnicity is doing a lot of the abuse and there's just a riot and saying, no, we can't have this. So let's go up against this, like in the Rwandan genocide that occurred. Uh, it happens in any single sort of ethnic cleansing, any single uh, act of genocide that you see, regardless of the kind of group, because otherwise, it would specifically only happen to Christians or only happen to Muslims. But no, it happens across the board. And that's something that should definitely be looked into the root and how there's this underlying relation, regardless of one's ethnicity, nation, religion, which is interesting to definitely look at.
I would say, one of the most interesting portions to look at is the intersection between nationality or nationalism and, fundamentalist religions. Because, in a lot of instances, when it comes to genocides, those two intersect completely. And it has led to, I would say, the majority of genocides.
very interesting stuff, gentlemen. Very interesting stuff. I mean, we could have a whole episode on nationalism alone. I think that would be a good topic.
We should,
Yeah.
yeah.
There is something I want to discuss about China in like next couple of weeks and regarding Taiwan. So that would be
Ooh,
interesting.
yeah.
I like that. Yeah.
It's either next week you'll see an episode about nationalism or you'll see an episode about Taiwan, or maybe together because nationalism is there as well. So
It will always be in the mix.
yes,
A lot of nations, a lot of things.
a lot of nations, a lot of things, but everything in moderation.
Said like a genius, yes. Big words.
All right, everybody. Have a good one.
All right, you too.
Have a good weekend.
Peace
See ya.
out.